Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episode, we are looking at the goalie menage a trois between James Reimer, Adin Hill, and Kaapo Kahkonen, trying to make the case for each goalie, decide who stays, who should go, and potential trade packages. Plus, Gannon Laroque signs his ELC. Linus Oberg, it will not be a Shark. All that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young. Thank you, as always, for making us your first San Jose Sharks listen. We are free and available wherever podcasts are. And, of course, you can subscribe to us on YouTube as well. And today, of course, the Sharks have a huge decision to make between their three goalies. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the recent Sharks news. Good friend of the show, Gannon Laroque, signed his ELC on Wednesday. So he is going to be in the Sharks organization. This is just a formality, especially the way he blew up this year and really found his offensive game. Congrats to him. So the plan is to hopefully get him on the show next week. So fingers crossed. Right now we're just crossing our T's, dotting our I's, but that should be Laroque on the show next week to talk about his ELC and his season. So, and then the other kind of big news was Linus Oberg did not get an offer, his ELC contract, the 7th round pick in the 2020 draft class. They had a deadline at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Wednesday the 1st to offer him a contract. It seemed like a numbers game where they wanted to kind of keep that contract available for potentially somebody else. And especially if he wasn't going to contribute right away to the Sharks on the NHL team. I think he wanted to stay in Sweden for another year or potentially play in the AHL next year. So, I wouldn't be surprised if another team does sign him at some point because he did have a really nice season in the SHL. I think he was one of the top scorers for his age. And so, au revoir, Oberg. We hardly knew ye. And then the rest of the 2021 draft class, they got their bona fide offer, right? So basically, that just means that the Sharks are keeping them in their system right now, and that guys like Goodrow and Cardwell, they should be getting their ELC contracts at some point if the Sharks deem them fit. So. But let's get to the big news today. What we're here to talk about, and that is what the Sharks should do with their goalie situation. So they're going into this season right now with three goalies on their kind of on the books on the NHL team. You have James Reimer, the veteran, Adin Hill, who was supposed to, the Sharks traded for last offseason with the second round pick to the Arizona Coyotes. And then Kaapo Kahkonen, who the Sharks acquired at the deadline from the Minnesota Wild. And right now, first let's start off with, no, the Sharks should not be running three goalies. It's just a bad use of assets. It just kind of clogs up what you can do. It gives you less flexibility, especially since these guys are not waivers eligible. If you put them on waivers, somebody's going to snatch them up just because they are all NHL caliber goaltenders. And you just don't see teams running three goalies unless there's an issue with someone being hurt, something like that. But no, the Sharks need to make a decision on which one of these guys is going to be with them going in, which one of these guys they need to kind of get rid of and which two guys they need to keep. So let's go ahead and start up and kind of take a broader picture and look at each guy, kind of how they finished last season, and then we're going to kind of make the case for each one, and then look at some potential trades for some of the other guys. So let's go ahead and start with James Reimer, who was signed last offseason. He's 34 years old. has 1 year, $2.25 million left on his contract going into the 2022-2023 season. Does have a 5-team no trade list. So what that means is before the season starts, he will put in 5 teams that he doesn't want to be traded to. No idea what those teams are, who they are. It could be teams that he's played for before. It could just be teams that where places he doesn't want to go, et cetera, et cetera. So again, that still counts the other 26 available teams that he could be traded to. But yes, does have a minor 5-team no trade list. So last year he played 48 games, which was the most amount of games that he started played in his career. Had a 19, 17, and 10 record, 9-11 save percentage, 2.9 goals against, and 1 shutout. At one point started 13 games in a row until he died. R.I.P. James Reimer. But you could definitely see, he came out of the gates really hot last year, was a big part of the Sharks' early success when they were, the all vibes Sharks that started the season. But definitely wore down as the season went on, especially when they had to start him 13 games in a row. And, I don't think any playoff caliber team should be relying on James Reimer starting 48 games in a season. But I mean, he did play admirably, and he kept the Sharks from losing a lot of games that they probably should have gone on. Was a potential trade deadline target. The Sharks did dangle him out there, the trade deadline, to some contenders. Nobody took the bait, of course, as he's still a Shark. So next, Adin Hill. Again, he was traded for by the Coyotes right before the expansion draft, where the Sharks gave a second-round pick to Arizona, and then they also sent over I am totally blanking on their goalie's name. It's going to come back to me in a minute. So, but he signed a contract last year. He has 1 year, $2.175 million left on his deal. He's 25, he's 26. Sorry. He has played 25 games last year. Went 10, 11, and 1, a 906 save percentage with 266 goals against, and had 2 shutouts. But the big thing with him was he had a lower body injury. After January 22nd, he played 1 game where he came in, played on March 12th, had a 3-0 shutout over the Kings, and then we did not see him again. So, his numbers were definitely down compared to Arizona. But this was his first kind of big injury in his career. He's usually been really durable. At one point for the Coyotes, he started 10 games in a row for them. So I'm hoping this is just a blip on the map. He says that he should be, he'll be ready by the time, training camp starts. But it's definitely not, the best, I think, especially when you're going into a goalie, you're going into a battle and you're not able to put any more, footage on tape for the coaching staff and the management to try to, kind of evaluate you. So, Josef Koronash was who the Sharks traded with for Adin Hill. But, it was just I think it was a tough season. We saw flashes with Adin Hill where, he would look really good one night, but then I think it was a big thing with his consistencies, and he definitely needs to work on his glove hand, where it was, just that glove hand right above the glove hand. He was getting beat constantly there. So, but again, only 26. Goalies take a much longer time to develop. So before we continue, we're going to look at Kaapo Kahkonen next, and then look at some potential trades and who I think the Sharks should keep. Let's go ahead and take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at Built Bar. Guys, people have been asking, and Built Bar has finally delivered. Built granola bars are here. Built granola bars come in 3 unbelievable flavors: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. Want to try all 3? You can get a mixed box right now at built.com just to test them out. They're different from the other bars and puffs. Built granola bars are loaded with granola. It's a perfect combination of crunch and chewiness. But just like the bars and puffs, these babies are still covered in 100% real chocolate and packed with protein. With 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, only 4 grams of sugar, Built granola bars will change your world. Built has cracked the code to better granola, and they're perfect, healthy snack to pack in your lunch, take on the road, or eat as a snack. So, if you want to go try them out, head over to built.com. Make sure you get all 3. Try the 3 delicious flavors again: chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, white chocolate berry over at built.com. Again, use the promo code LOCK15. Get 15% off your first order when you use the promo code LOCK15 at 50% off at built.com. Also, from Locked On, we have an important favor to ask you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about our listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcasts. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It doesn't take super long, and everyone that enters or everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win up to 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. So take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you guys for your help. All right, so let's finish up here with Kaapo Kahkonen. Sharks traded for him at the NHL deadline for Jacob Middleton. Also got pick 139. He turns 26 in August. He is an RFA. So his projected deal from Evolving Hockey is a 1-year, $2.488 million, or a 2-year at 2.779 AAV. So projecting him to be kind of in the same ballpark as what Reimer and Hill are making right now. So last year with the Wild, he played 23 games for Wild, had a 12-8-3, 910 save percentage, 2.87 goals against average with 0 shutouts. But the Sharks played 11 games, went 2-6-1, had a 916 save percentage, but 286 goals against and 0 shutouts. So he actually posted better, if not comparable numbers with the Sharks than what he did with the Wild. The Wild are a much better team than the Sharks as they went to the playoffs, and where a lot of people had them as kind of dark horses to potentially come out of the West. But unfortunately, that did not happen for the Wild as the Blues took them down. But I mean, with Kaapo Kahkonen, he does kind of have the pedigree. He was a former AHL goalie of the year. But you wonder, why would the Wild trade for him if he has this pedigree? Well, I think I talked about this the other day, where Kaapo Kahkonen, I think he has a future to be a really good goaltender. He wasn't helping the Wild win the Cup last season, right? They wanted someone with a little bit more veteran presence, maybe just a better goalie right now. So that's why they traded for Marc-Andre Fleury. But then you think, well, why not just kind of keep him in your system, let him continue to develop and cook? Last year in the 2021 draft class, they had Jesper Wallstedt fall to them. Jesper Wallstedt is going to be a absolute stud. If you've been around the podcast for a while, Kyle and I were like, if the Sharks can't get Eklund, they should really think about getting Jesper Wallstedt, who's going. He signed his ELC contract with the Wild recently. He's going to be in the NHL next year, and it's not going to be long until we're talking about how Wallstedt is a top 5, potentially Vezina caliber goalie. Like, he is an absolute stud. Like, what he was doing in the SHL, which is arguably the 3rd best league in the world, what he was doing there at his age, at the age of like 18 and 19, was insane. So, Kaapo Kahkonen not helping the Wild win the Cup last year. That's why they traded for Marc-Andre Fleury. And then they know that they got Jesper Wallstedt coming, and it's going to be a year or two, and then before he is, just busting down the doors as a potential one of the best goalies in the league. So, so they just thought they could get a piece like Middleton, who, we saw how great Middleton was for the Sharks. So again, I think this trade kind of worked out for both teams, where the Sharks can take another swing at a potential goalie, while the Wild, they can move on a piece that they really didn't need to try to get some defensive help. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for the Wild, as they again lost in the first round. But it feels like they're going to try to re-sign Middleton, and I assume the Sharks are going to try to re-sign Kaapo Kahkonen. So comes to the big question now: who do you trade? So look at it this way. I mean, let's start with Kaapo Kahkonen first. I would be surprised. Actually, I would be shocked if Kaapo Kahkonen isn't a Shark come opening night. They traded for him at the deadline. I know he's an RFA, and you can work out a new deal, but I thought he looked really good for the Sharks on the stretch. I think he had just like one bad game, but I mean, I think back to there was the Dallas game where he had like 45 shots. It was the first night of a back-to-back. He faced 45 shots and only gave up one goal. That game, there was plenty of games. There was the Edmonton game where he got a lot of I think he gave up 4 goals, but he was battling and fighting, and you saw what he was doing there. And I feel like with his rebound control, getting maybe some better defenders in front of him, I feel like there's a lot of potential with Kaapo Kahkonen. And again, he won the AHL Goalie of the Year. There's that pedigree there. I think just being in the Sharks system for not getting thrown into it, getting to work with a defenseman. I mean, you saw that sometimes the miscommunication where guys are coming back to help, and there was just that just not playing together type of thing, where that'll come when you're playing with the guys more. So he is the safest of the three, I think, to be back on the Sharks next year. Let's go next. James Reimer. So Reimer, I think if you want to kind of look, if you keep James Reimer, that means that I think you're trying to make the playoffs next year. And the Sharks have said that they want to try to make the playoffs next year. He played admirably for the Sharks, was at times, other than Timo Meier, their best player, their most valuable player, was really solidified the goaltending, especially after years of Martin Jones, and then we had Dubnyk Island, and and we got to see Melnichuk and Kornash and just a bunch of guys, and he really kind of came in and solidified the goaltender. He was an adult back there, and he made the Sharks look a lot better than they actually were at times. But you can get the most for him. And if you're trying to kind of slide, kind of run, through the eye of this retool right now, where you're not going to go into a full rebuild mode, but you're looking to the future, I think he can get you the most right now. The Sharks dangled him at the trade deadline to a lot of contenders. If you look at, teams like Edmonton comes to mind, where, I know they're in the Western Conference Finals right now, but that series is insane, and they're giving up 1,000 goals. And Mike Smith is 40 years old. I know James Reimer isn't a spring chicken himself, but he can come in there and play, if you can find Reimer and then somebody else to kind of split the load, James Reimer can help you win a lot of games. And especially if you have a lot better talent in front of him, I think he could help you out. So, or if you look at a team like the Devils, they had a ton of goaltending issues. They have a great forward group. Their defense is okay. I know they got it. They have a Hughes brother coming here soon, but Mackenzie Blackwood seems pretty solid, but I don't know if he's ready to take that full on starter. I'm going to start 55, 60 games in a season role. Maybe James Reimer comes in, you help solidify. And if Blackwood needs to kind of sit for a game or two or whatever, you kind of find that balance right there. And, I talked about with the with the Devils, where they're that fun young core that's ready to kind of take the next step. James Reimer can, be that guy, kind of be the dad in the room and really help that team kind of take the next step. So, we've seen Reimer, and again, he played really well for the Sharks, especially the situations he's put in a lot of time. But I think for him, if you're getting 35, 40, at the very max 40 starts out of him, that's probably puts him in a better position where he's not having to, again, start 13 games in a row, play 4 out of 5 games, stuff like that. Like, you can kind of take the load off him a little bit, and he can kind of be crisper going throughout the season. So, and then Adin Hill. So his stock is going to be the worst right now just because of the injuries. But I still think he could be a valuable asset to a team. If a team's looking for that kind of 1A, 1B situation where maybe they have a veteran type of guy and they need to kind of lighten the load on him some. So, I'm just kind of throwing like a team like, it's tough right now. Maybe like Toronto, where they have their situation, but they need someone to kind of take the help the load a little bit, or like the Red Wings, where they have Ned, who they got from the Canes. But again, it's I think Ned's gonna be a really good goaltender, but having an Adin Hill there to kind of help be that 1A, 1B situation type of thing. So those are the 3. If they decide to keep the Kaapo Hill, I think they're thinking more long term, where they're not going to give up on the Hill and just because of one bad season. If they keep the Kaapo Reimer, I think they want to try to win now, because that's been their kind of prerogative. We want to try to win now. We think we can be a playoff team type of situation. So, as of I'm recording this June 1st. I'm going to lean in the Reimer Kaapo camp. I think, like I said, James Reimer performed very admirably last year. I think they kind of want to reward him and maybe give him a chance to kind of help lead the Sharks into a winning direction. I know he's a little bit older, but with Kaapo, maybe kind of filling in that 1B situation this year and potentially overtaking Reimer, and there's a healthier split of the games where maybe, like I said, if Reimer's in that 40 game start and then, maybe like 35-40, and then Hill's kind of, not Hill, Kaapo Kahkonen starting the majority of them, I think it's a healthier balance right there, and it lets both guys kind of be fresh. And we saw that with Reimer, where he wore it down. And I think, especially Kaapo, he's younger. He's going to be able to kind of bounce back and stuff. And I thought he played really well down the end of the stretch. So, what the big thing now is, what do you get for Adin Hill? So, you're not getting a second round pick for him back. That's not going to happen. So, looking at kind of other trades, I think with the salary, his salary isn't too bad. And I think teams could easily fit that in. I would think you'd have to look at something like a 4th round pick. I think that would be kind of the starting, if you can maybe get like a late 3rd, but I think a 4th round pick is probably what you're looking at. If they wanted to trade James Reimer, I think you look at a 3rd, potentially a late 2nd type of thing. Maybe you throw, like a late pick swap or something like that, or you throw in like a 7th round pick or something. But it just kind of depends on how desperate the team is for that goalie. So if it's in Edmonton, where they're going to be kind of, not in a great spot, let me pull up their cap friendly and see who they have. It's not like they're, again, they're starting Mike Smith bajillion games right now in the playoffs, and he's looked terrible in all the first round games. So, and it's they have Kaapo Kahkonen, who's 33, and he's a free agent. So I think that's your team right there. To be honest, they have some young guys who are like in the, they have Stuart Skinner, who played against the Sharks, and he looks good against the Sharks, and they have some other young guys, but like, I think Edmonton is kind of your pick. They don't have, the tough thing is they don't have a 2nd or 3rd round pick this year. So, and they may not have a 2nd round pick. If they if they reach the Stanley Cup, then Montreal gets the 2nd round pick from them next year. So, maybe with them, you offer, you might be able to, if it's a future pick, you can maybe get a 2nd round pick in like 2024, or you try to get a prospect back for them but yeah, they just don't have any ammo right now to try to trade. So You want to get any picks to help you in this year's draft, but maybe a pick to help you in next year's draft. So to recap, I think Kaapo Kahkonen is the safest guy to make the to be on the Sharks next year. Then I would put it at like 65% Reimer, 35% Hill, if my math is right there. Just because I feel like you kind of want to reward Reimer for what he went through this season. He was arguably, if he wasn't, I know Timo Meier was the Sharks' best player, but there was many nights where James Reimer held that sinking ship together. And then Adin Hill, again, if the Sharks decide to keep Kaapo and Hill, that is we're looking towards the future. If the Sharks keep Kaapo and James Reimer, that's we're going to try to win right now type of thing. And that's what makes me think they're going to keep Reimer and Kaapo, just because that tandem, I think, is helping you win more games in the 2022-2023 season. If they're keeping if they keep Adin Hill and James Reimer, and when they either trade Kaapo's rights or just don't re-sign him, that's weird asset management, and I don't see that unless you can get a really good pick for Kaapo Kahkonen. But I feel like he showed in a smaller sample size, but I feel like he showed more than Adin Hill last year, and I think there's a little bit more of a pedigree with him. So plus he's a foodie, you can't go wrong with that, I guess. So but that's going to be it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, kind of looking at the menage a trois of goalies. It's gonna, we're definitely, I think, gonna kind of go back at this as we get closer to the trade deadline, or to the draft, where I think that's where the move's gonna happen, is at the draft. We're right before the draft. We'll see a lot more action. But if you guys liked it, if you guys hated it, let me know. We'll probably do a poll and see what you guys think of who the Sharks should keep going into next season. But yeah, you can find us or find me on Twitter at Locked On Sharks on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You guys know I'm pretty active at responding to you guys and hanging out with you guys there, even though I have a day job, but it keeps me from working. Also, make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube. We're getting closer to 850 right now. I think I might do something when we get close to 900. I've got some of the fan appreciation jerseys sitting around my house right now. I think I might give those away. And then you can listen, of course, wherever you get podcasts: Odyssey, Spotify, Apple, that good jazz. You can find me on Twitter at myfryhole. And again, so tomorrow, Thursday, I guess tonight, as you're listening to this, Thursday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, going to be doing a live show where I'm going to be throwing around some Brent Burns fake trades, because it's that time of the year, and I know people are like, well, he's never going anywhere. You never know. The Sharks got to make some cap space some way, and you can get some pretty good assets from old Mr. Burns. So we're gonna be, I'm gonna come with some of mine. I'm gonna read some of yours. We'll kind of have fun with that. So come hang out. 8 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube. So Locked On Sharks on YouTube. Just search for, you'll be able to find us pretty easily. Again, thank you guys for making us your Sharks listen. It really appreciates me the support you guys are showing, even after Kyle's left. It means a lot to me. I do appreciate every listen and every note and stuff like that you guys kind of leave for me. So and then go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. Keep up what's going on in the playoffs. Yeah, those Colorado Edmonton games are just freaking insane right now. So I'll be back tomorrow with a live show on Brent Burns trade destinations. And then we got Gannon Laroque coming next week, and the return of one Will Scouch. So bye, friends.